No, these are other people who are joining. If you click like this. Hey, so if I share content like this,
wait, I think. Let me. I'll make you a host.
Make me a host. Okay, good.
Yep.
Like, I need
All right, does it work now?
Just let me test this out. I go like this. Photos. So you can see that map?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I can, and I click that now back to the video, right?
Yes.
Hey, cats.
Hey, John. How you doing?
Living the dream, just don't know whose.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Wait, whose dream is it?
I don't know. That's the joke. Living the dream, but I don't
yeah,
know.
but like, imagine
It's
living
true.
like Tom Petty's dream, just like free falling.
It was an excellent joke, John.
Can't believe you ruined an amazing joke, Max.
What's up, Anna?
I'd be introduced.
Oh, this is Anna. She's my friend. We do BBYO together, which you both should join. It's
What is
amazing.
BB?
It's very,
Yeah, what is that?
it's like wicked fun. I can like talk to you after about it because I want to like, I'll give you the breakdown, but like it is.
What does it
very-
stand for? Can we just start with that?
Technically nothing anymore, but it used to stand for B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, but now it stands for nothing.
Okay.
What do you mean it stands for nothing?
Well, it used to be affiliated with like this group, but now it isn't because they wanted to have like independence, I guess. Like they wanted to have like autonomy so they could do
So
whatever
now
they
just
wanted. So, yeah, now they're basically just doing their own thing.
I should probably have like a white.
Here's Haley. Supposedly.
Are we the only ones joining?
No, there should be a lot more people joining. Oh, there's my sister.
You have a sister?
It's true. We're twins.
He has a brother too.
So if you go like this, you can see
What?
everything goes on. Yeah.
John's like stunned.
How many, Alan?
I've always thought of you and Ben and Jake as, it. But come to find out there's more.
It's true. It's true.
John, they're multiplying.
Yes, Haley, you.
And Danny.
You're shocked by your mere existence.
Ew.
Sophie, I gave them the
Oh, Ellie's joining.
so
I
when
do.
people join, you see that. See, another person joins.
What's up, Ellie?
So we go back to this.
His parents.
Wait, John, do you know Max
Yes?
Westoven?
So this is us. Yeah.
Who?
When we
This
do
kid?
it, we'll go back to this view so you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
know
made a
Max.
photo for my profile photo now.
everything. Whoever's
It's
talking.
like a photo of him with like
Hear us.
posing with like a photo of like bread, and it's
This
like,
is-
is it better than like
makes it-
pristine German potato bread? So now I made it my screensaver. It's a good photo.
We're not green, but if you start talking, see the green goes around the screen. You can see that it's green. Yeah, who's talking? It's a great program.
It is.
Are his parents on?
When does he start?
See, more people keep joining. No, another person.
Yeah, it's not 5. It's not 5 yet.
You have 7 people down here now.
1, 2.
We have 9.
This in this house, Kansas house.
Everybody is in their individual houses like we are.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Stimulating conversation.
Yes, my ceiling's a great photo, right? Dude, one teacher said to me, she's like, why do you have your ceiling there? I'm like, because it's better to have my ceiling. Plus, like, it's because my iPad doesn't have the stand thing. It doesn't, like, the back of, like, the case does not work right, so you can't stand it up. So I just put it, like, flat.
Welcome.
There are more people?
Many more, John. Many more.
Oh, I just realized I could scroll because there are a bunch of people. Wait, hold on. Jack, Lily, Max, Mac. Oh, then there's overlap.
Oh, what?
There are 3 other people.
You
Okay.
get his name.
Oh, there's 12. Yeah, I see. So there's when it gets into very good. I'll put my glasses on.
Ooh, that's how you do that. Good to know.
What do you do?
I just realized I can stop my video.
Oh, cool.
Jack, I think we're gonna be having more people filtering in, but I guess I just want to say, like, as I'm sure most or all of you know, today is Yom HaShoah, which is the Jewish holiday of remembrance for the Holocaust. And yeah, it's pretty important to hear the testimonies of people who lived through it. And that's why I'm really glad that we have Jack here with us and
Yes,
Neil. So, Jack, if you want to take it away.
well, I could. My name is Jack Goldman. And I survived the Second World War as a Christian. Okay. Now, is anybody down here who's a survivor, his parents or grandparents are survivors? It looks like nobody. Okay. So we'll give you some information about it.
Yeah. This is the second time we've done this. We did it once at the temple in Andover. And the format that worked there was like I asked questions to get through the story. But it's, and I have some pictures. I'll put up some pictures. And I see you guys are all muted, but if you guys have any questions during the story, if you're not unclear, just please ask. And if you, yeah, and we'll answer any questions or afterwards. The last time we did it, they were like in 8th grade, so it might have been a little bit too young in a way. Yeah. Because most of you guys have studied World War II and know about the Holocaust, right? Yeah. So okay. So okay, we can just get to it. So we'll just go question and answer format. So, Dad, where were you born?
I was born in Poland, Yaroslav.
Yaroslav?
Yeah, the city of Yaroslav.
Uh-huh. And what was it? Was it a village or a town?
It was a city. In Poland, naturally.
Here. So, just so you know what we're talking about, there's Poland, there's Europe, and this is the town, Yaroslav. The city, yeah. And so what was your family? How big was your family?
Well, we have been 8 and 4 kids and the parents, so it was 8.
Right. Oh, there was 6 kids in the parents.
6 kids, yeah.
Yeah, 6 kids in the parents. And what did your father do for a job?
Well, he was the, how would they say it?
Like a veterinarian?
Veterinarian, yes.
He worked with horses?
And naturally, animals.
Okay.
Cows and dogs and who knows what.
And just to get a sense of what life was like before the war, what was your house like when you grew up, where you grew up?
Well, my house was half decent. I mean, no comparison like the houses down in the United States or in Canada. But we all survived till the war started.
Right?
Yeah.
Would you say, I mean, you told me that your house didn't have a wooden floor, right?
That's right, yes.
What was the floor?
The dirt floor.
A dirt floor?
Yeah.
You had a wooden stove in there?
Naturally, yes.
So it was like
a gas lamp. You didn't have no electricity.
Outhouse?
Outhouse, yes.
Wow.
Don't forget, this is over 70 years past.
In a poor country like Poland.
And you forget what happens to you because you didn't want to remember what really happened.
Right. And do you remember what your life was like before the war broke out?
Well, before the war broke out, I was going to Polish school naturally, and then naturally, and anti-Semitism in Poland, and
You experienced anti-Semitism in school?
yes, yes, and especially Poland was a very religious, religious Jewish people, and actually when they came to school, they had prayers and a yarmulke. It was a novelty to the Poles. It was the same thing like the parents down here used to have a black hat, white shirt, and
Tzitzit.
and tzitzis hanging out. So you didn't have to go too far to spot a Jew, especially a religious Jew.
And they were picked on in school, you remember?
They were, yes, because I was brought up religious, so you see, they used to pick on boys my age at that time.
Right.
And used to pull the prayers, or and the teachers wouldn't react out of this. So I look like a Pole anyhow. I was blonde hair and blue eyes, so nobody could really say that I'm Jewish. So they say, "Hey, you're Polak, and look, you sympathizing with a Jew, with Żydami, and that's the way it went."
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want?
So,
Yeah.
Okay, so just so you guys know, you were about 9-10 years old when the war broke out.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And you had 2 younger sisters and 3 older brothers, and 3 older brothers and 1 younger brother.
Right.
Okay, so do you remember when the war broke out in 1939 in Poland?
I do. Yes. Because in the cities, the Jewish people, the Jews, the religious Jews, usually lived together, and they didn't practice the Polish language or associated with Poles. They only associated with Jews, and the temples. Let's say if they couldn't go to the temple, they prayed at home. You know most likely the history about Jews. They have to have 10 people to make a minyan. So they made a minyan, and something was more or less. But this was dangerous because the Polish people, which were sympathetic to the Nazis, they could notify the Nazis, and they used to come down and pick them up. Otherwise, it was quiet.
Right. Do you remember when things got unsafe in your city?
And our city, I would say it was about 41.
Okay.
You see, because they picked up the Jews, usually from the cities, because they used to live like in ghettos, streets, and
In neighborhoods, Jewish neighborhoods.
Jewish neighborhoods, so they didn't have to go too far. But a lot of people lived out of town in villages, and they had small businesses and so on. And this was quite difficult to travel. Let's say not everybody had a car, horse and buggy, but let's say 5 or 6 miles. It was 6-7 hours one way and the other way to bring them back. You see, and it was quite difficult for the people which did not sympathize with the Jews or to help them out to travel so far.
Right. So they started in the cities rounding up Jews.
Very simple.
Do you remember when your father or people in your family had to register? Because in around 1940, 41, you had to start registering as a Jew.
Well, they knew who was a Jew. It was pretty simple to recognize the Jews, and naturally they were registered in the city hall or town hall, so there was no big issue to find them.
Right. So what happened to your father?
Well, he was arrested with a cousin of his, and naturally they took him away. And I used to go, and I think my mother and my aunt went down to the jail, but we couldn't see him, but we seen him in the second floor.
So you remember seeing your father?
Oh, yes. And then after about 10 days or 2 weeks, you couldn't go because they took him away, and I never seen him since.
And that was probably took them to a concentration camp.
Yes, if not, they killed him before he got to the concentration camps.
Right. So after your father was arrested and then subsequently taken away,
Yes,
your mother must have realized it was unsafe.
yes, it was unsafe, especially in the cities. So you see,
So at
I
that,
had grandparents.
right,
I had grandparents in different villages. So you see, at the villages, you see
ahead.
it, yeah.
keep going.
At the villages was harder for the Nazis or sympathizers to the Nazis to organize the people. Okay, you all set? Okay.
I'm just showing.
Yeah.
There's a gotch.
Oh yeah, it's one of the cities where my grandmother used to live. Right?
So
And
after your father got arrested, do you remember going to Gotch?
I went to Gotch. Yeah, yes, I went to my grandmother because I had an uncle living with her. He was at that time, what, 32, 34 years. And he knew everybody in that community because he was born down there.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, he was very sympathetic with the police, Polish police. And the Polish police was next door to Gotch, was Marco, but it's okay.
Right.
We were hidden after we had to, all of us had to report to the police station.
Right. But before that, you
Yeah.
you stayed for some time in Gotch, and then it became unsafe in Gotch.
Well,
After-
they had to report after a while.
Okay.
So then my uncle had a close friend, so-called,
Mm-hmm.
and I was with my grandmother and my older brother with us. And he went to the police station 2 or 3 times, and they asked him who it is. So he said, well, it's the Goldmans. And he was very friendly with everybody, my uncle, very well-known guy. And, you know, the police didn't want to come, but he went 3 times to tell him, pick him up.
Right.
And finally they didn't pick us up because they were scared that he will notify the Gestapo or the Nazis, and they'll pick him up too.
So just so we're clear,
Yeah.
you moved from the city. Your father got arrested. You moved from the city to your grandmother's house.
Right.
It becomes unsafe at your grandmother's house, and you go to hiding with with your
Yes.
grandmother, your
Because-
brother Moshe,
Right.
and you
That's what to this
to this
yeah.
guy's house. A guy who your uncle knew took you in for some
was
time,
friendly, yes, with it.
but that didn't last too long. He turned on you guys, right?
Well, he turned. I mean, and my uncle knew him well. I think he went to school with him, and
What did he do?
the guy.
Yeah.
Well, he was a farmer. you
No, but
see.
what did he do to betray you and your grandmother?
Well, he didn't say nothing. He just went straight down to the police and told them about us.
And said he's hiding Jews.
He's hiding Jews, yes.
Well, so what happens then? The police come to the house?
The police came down to the house and going to pick us up, and I ran away. And
So explain what happened. So
there was nighttime. They came and picked us up. It was my grandmother and my brother, and naturally me. So when I was going from out of the door, it was nighttime, and I took off. You know, and
where did you run to?
I was running to a fence, not too far away from Gotch. We're a very close friend of my uncle and my father. So I went to see him, and he took me in, and I told him what happened. And I stayed with him, I think, for 2 or 3 days. And then he says, Jack, or Yannick, it was my name, that I can't keep you, because he was scared. He had a family, and very close friend of the family. He used to come down to the house, let's say, every 10 days. And I don't know if they had a drink or a beer, but he was friendly with him. And then
So he took you in for a couple days?
yes, and I had to.
And then didn't he put you in touch with your Uncle Jack?
Yes, he knew me, when my Uncle Jack who was hiding.
So
And he was hiding in the town where he was born.
he was hiding. So
Yeah.
this guy, so your grandmother and your brother got picked up by the police.
Yes.
And did you ever see them again
Never seen him again.
So you just ran into the woods. How long were you in the
In
woods?
the field.
In the fields.
Yeah.
And
It was, let's say, the night, and the next morning,
you found your uncle's
I
friend.
yes.
And then you get hooked up. He brings you to your Uncle Jack. He knew your Uncle Jack
Well, I
was.
think he told me where it is, and I found my way.
Okay,
I don't know if I'll find my way now, but,
right.
you know.
And so, what was your Uncle Jack's situation?
For Uncle Jack, it was another uncle of mine. He had to leave too, and he had a wife and a daughter and his niece, and I came to stay with him. So you know,
Where was he staying?
He was staying in the attic, you know, and God, it wasn't God's, and he kept him. I don't know for about, I would say.
Go ahead.
He kept him for about, I would say, a year and a half or 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Be that with you guys.
No, go ahead. Keep going. They can hear you.
You see, so
This-
after this guy who kept him, he says, Jake, his name was Jake, you have to leave because I'm scared some people got the wind of it. So he says, at that time, he says, Jack told me I didn't have no place where to go. So he says, I went to school with one of the my neighbors, and he says, I'll go and see him. And he says to him, yes, come down and I will try to save you. Now my uncle was, it was 5 people, and he had 5 or 6 daughters. And
The guy who owned the
Right.
house.
And this is, by the way, there's the house which
Right. This is a similar house
Yeah,
of
it's
where they
close.
were hiding.
Yeah.
They were hiding up in the attic.
Yeah, and this was a straw roof, and you could imagine how hot it used to get summertime. It's unbelievable. Has to be, I would say, 95 or 100 degrees. And my uncle had a daughter, and she was about a year and a half or 2 years. And you know, a small child, she didn't understand what was going on. So if we lived in the attic, and the child wanted to say something or cry, they had to put the hand or something on her mouth that no neighbor should hear. And anyhow,
So how long did you stay in the attic with
I
them?
stayed with my uncle, I would say about 3-4 months, more or less.
Just what did you do all day?
What could you do in top of an attic, and you can't go out? You have to stay, so you go out, and
Like quarantine.
that's right. It's worse than that.
Like worse than Corona.
It was worse than, at least if you wanted to commit suicide, you would go out, and that would be it.
Right.
But this was a hard time even to commit suicide by yourself. But it was harder when they caught you, especially the Nazis. They punished you. They wanted to find out who kept you, let's say, for 6-7 months or a year, and finally you gave in.
Yeah.
So they used to go down to the place where you were hidden. 3 sites on each side of the house, and they killed the people. So it's
The neighbors.
the neighbors, you know. So it's why it was so difficult for the Polish people, the sympathizers to our cause, to hide any Jews, you know.
It was so dangerous.
That's right. It was very dangerous. But this guy, which we stated
In his attic.
at his attic, he knew Uncle.
Yeah, he was a very righteous man.
Well, he was a righteous man, right?
And he had 4 daughters who were
5 daughters for sure.
and they never told anybody in
And they
school.
went to slave because it was suicide.
Right.
You know,
So every year they went to school and never told every day
After they went to school, yes.
and never told anybody that they have Jews in the attic.
That's right. Then nighttime in the evening, we came down and cooled off, and
You ate it.
we had something to eat. We didn't have no steaks for sure, but anyhow, my uncle and his wife and my cousin, the niece and his daughter, they survived.
And your brother Joe would show up from time to time.
Sometimes, yes.
Your oldest brother.
Yes, yes.
But you decided,
That's right.
you made what I think is a crazy decision. What'd you do after a couple months in this house?
Well, I was in the attic and you get tired sitting down there, you see, and it's hard and, what could you talk about? I mean, anyhow, so I took off. I didn't want to stay with my uncle, and he says, no, Jack, stay down here, don't go. But he couldn't convince me, and I went.
So how old were you at this time?
I had to be about 11 years old, 11 or 12 years old, more or less.
Did you have a plan what you were going to do?
Well, I did not have a plan, but this was a village close to a city. It was named Shavos.
Yeah, I think we have a map of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So you decided what you were going to go to Shavos?
Yeah, I went to Shavos.
Go ahead.
You got it?
Yeah. You can kind of see. So Gotch is right in the middle of the screen. So what did you do? You walked from Gotch north.
To Shavos. It's not too far. It was well, that's okay. Well,
It's all right. We can get it. We can get
Well,
it together. So you walked to a town miles away.
I went to a town I went to Shavos, and it was a farmer's market, and they had a lot of farmers used to bring their goods to the market, so people used to buy it, and I used to go for one farmer and ask them, the one farmer and the second farmer, if they need anybody should help them on the farm. So
if you were looking for work,
you
it's
don't
good.
have my picture.
It's all right.
So I was looking for work. So I went, I would say 6, 7, 10 farmers, and nobody said yes. I mean, you're 10, 11, 12 years old. You see, farm work is difficult. I come down to one farmer down on a buggy, horse and buggy, and I ask him. He says, well, I don't need you, but my neighbor, he always hires guys for the summer. So and he says, if you want to come with me, I introduce you to him. So I went with him, and
You get there
with this farmer. He took me down because he was from the same village.
on a horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy, yeah. So it took us about, I would say, it's 3-4 hours, because the horses didn't go too fast. And I went down there to the farmer's house, and and nobody was except the elderly lady, his mother. And I asked him if they need anybody. He says, well, I don't know. My son is not home, but he will be back in 10, 15 minutes. So I was happy that I could sit someplace. And finally he came in, tall guy. He was about, I would say, 6'2", and he says, what could I do for you? So I told him I'm looking for work. He says, well, I could use you. So he asked me where I'm from. So I told him where I'm from. He says, well, where are your parents? So I told him, I had to tell him it has to stick with me. So I told him the Nazis took them to Germany for work. And he gave me, and his wife came back after. And I stayed down there. I had a cot where to sleep, and I had food. And I took care of certain things on the farm with the cattle.
And what did you do there? You worked on the farm, pretty much?
Well, I worked on the farm, but then I used to take care of the cattle, because you have, let's say, 5 or 6 cattle, and you cannot go on somebody else's field to feed the cattle.
And did you go to temple with the guy? Did you go to shul or what?
No, to the shul. I wouldn't be here. But anyhow, I went to church
Every Sunday?
every Sunday. I went to the confessions. Let's say the 3 or 4 weeks.
What'd you tell him?
I used to tell him some bubbe mices, and it used to be a priest down in the box, And he sat down there and he had a window with the bars, and he's asking me, what did you do? So you have to tell him something. So I say, well, I was smoking a cigarette and I was swearing, all kinds of things. So he says, well, go down in front of the church and say 3 Holy Mary. And I knew all the prayers, you see. And I think that's what's,
Your mother told you.
yes. So my aunt. So, and hey,
Yeah, before you left the attic with your uncle, did
Yeah.
your aunt teach you any
oh yeah, she taught me, well, I knew it because
some Christian prayers?
well, the Christians, especially at that time, most likely now, because Catholicism in Poland, the Polacks, I would say, is 96 to 98% strict Catholics. So every Sunday or every morning when you get up, you have to say the prayer, So you knew it. You see, I knew the system very well. I still remember it.
So you never went to confession and said,
Oh yes.
"Forgive me, Father, I'm Jewish"?
No, maybe he thought about it, but no. Anyhow.
And there were no other. The guy didn't have any other kids.
No, he didn't have no kids. This guy, which
Who you stayed with?
I stayed with.
Franciszek, right?
Franciszek, Frank, yeah.
Frank. So, so you spent.
I spent 3.5 or 4 years down there
Uh-huh.
till the war was over. When the war was over, so I knew that I was a Jew.
You knew that the war was ending, or the war
It
was
was
close.
over. We knew it was over because we had to hide when we were liberated by the Russians, and they came down to
So the Russians came in because you were.
came in and we were hiding in certain places, and they said, "Hey, you liberated," and they left us and kept on going. You see,
Kept on going towards Berlin, right?
toward Berlin. Yes.
So how did you reconnect with your family
Well,
after the war? So this is probably what, 1945? You've been with this guy
yeah, I
for
was
4
still-
years.
till the war was ended. I
Uh-huh.
was with him, and I didn't know who survived from my family, and I didn't know what if anybody survived, where they could go. You see, my uncle had in Kantruga, which he showed, my son showed it to you. He had a couple of houses, and but I never thought about it that anybody survived. So you see,
So didn't you?
it was a coincidence, that the farmer, my boss, sent me. It was little dirty, He says, "You go down to my neighbor and give him the chicken." I had to carry a chicken because he wanted the chicken. I know it's foolish things. The chicken what I was carrying was supposed to sit on eggs. So I gave it to him, and when I went down there, I seen a horse and buggy driving this way. So I just dropped the chicken off, and I'm walking back, and I'm trying to cross right in front of the horse and buggy. And it was 2 guys or 3 guys, I don't remember exactly. And one of the guys says, I will say this in Jewish, "Kick noses into this angle." Look, it's one of our boys. So and I was surprised that
And who were they?
it was my mother's cousin. There were 4 brothers and a sister. They all survived. You see, they were in the Polish army, all of them, one at a time, and they used to come down to our house in Yaroslavl. It was the barracks, and they have, let's say, Sunday or Monday off. They used to come down and eat with us and joke around and so on. And everyone was military trained, and this saved their life.
So you bumped into them on the street.
Yes,
And what did they tell you?
they told me who survived. He says, "Uncle Jack survived. The whole family. I mean, his wife, the child, and the niece. And
in your family?
yes, in my family, my brother Joe survived. The older one, the oldest.
So just you and your brother Joe and the other 6 were probably went to concentration camps.
Well, I don't know, so I cannot say it. Or they got killed before they reached the concentration camps. And just, you know, that if you killed a Jew, was not a crime, right? You see.
So you got this. You met your cousins, and what do? You go.
Oh yes, I want to meet him. You see, now, how do you tell my pastor, hey, I'm Jewish, Jesus Christ, he sacrificed his life, and 2 families on each side, 2 neighbors for me, but he didn't know it, you know,
That you were Jewish.
he was Jewish. He never thought about it to check me out,
To see if you were circumcised.
because you know what, the Jews are circumcised. So anyhow, I survived that way, and I went. It was a Sunday. I used to have the day off, and I'm telling him, you know, I want to go down to a certain place to visit somebody. I said, where are you going? Who, do you know that? Yeah, I think I know somebody. I didn't tell him. So I went down to Kanchuga, where my Uncle Jack used to stay. Well, we live in Guts, but lived in Kanchuga, and I went down there. There was quite a few guys and girls, and Uncle let him rest in peace. He sat in a, and I walked in. She said, "Who is that?" You know, and naturally he came to me and he says, "I couldn't forgive myself that I let you go." You see, because they survived, and he's
In the attic.
in the attic. Yes, you know, and they survived, and I left, and they never heard from me because there was no correspondence.
Yeah, no email, no Zoom.
No Zoom, no computer, no phones or whatever.
Right.
And I met with them, and my brother Joe was in that. He was in another place. And since then, you know, I said, "Gee, I have to leave." And after about a week or 2 or 3 weeks, I left.
From the farmer?
From the farmer. He says, "Where you going? Stay here. You're about 14 or 15, a few more years, you get married." I said, "Well, you know, anyhow, I didn't want that. I couldn't listen to him when I realized who survived. You know, so anyhow, I survived, and I'm still living."
So you went, are you guys still into this? We got a couple more minutes. Is this cool? Everybody cool?
Now,
Yeah.
if you want to ask, if you want that,
Yeah.
Oh, no, you still have some more things to say
yeah,
about.
okay. But after
So-
you could ask me questions, I hope
Yeah.
I'll be able to answer you.
So you left the farmer.
Yes. Now
And
the second time
You
I
left him for good.
Yes.
And you went to see your Uncle Jack and your brother.
No, my brother wasn't.
He was somewhere else. So your Uncle Jack,
He was a
he was
great
in hiding.
man.
He was in hiding. He had a few properties, houses, but somebody else was living in the house,
That's
right?
right. He had a nice, you could say a beautiful house. For that time, he had another house, and he had a barn and had field. He was a very well-to-do person.
So he comes
Yeah.
out of hiding and he goes to his house, and there's some Polish people living there.
Right, I was coming to.
Yeah. Sorry.
So how do you cannot kick him out, because the Polish government did not want to accept that the people who survived should go and get the property. Like we had some property in Yarosław. My brother went to Poland, and every time he went to Poland, the law changed. They said, "Well, you cannot do it, that the law is different now," and they could live. But anyhow, for some reason, the people moved out, and that, let's say, within 2 or 3 months, and he moved in back to his house. And
And you moved in with him to that house?
I moved in with him to that house. It was me, him, his wife, his daughter, and the niece. And they had a Akka. They fought the liberation group for Poland. But after the war, they killed the Jews like they were killing before. So now,
Yeah, this is an interesting point in history. You don't really hear this. You never get this in high school. Was
no,
that the Polish army was fighting the Nazis,
yes.
but
At that time, excuse me,
Yeah.
at that time you had even Jews with their Poles fighting Nazis.
they weren't sympathetic towards the Jews. So after the Holocaust, when the Jews were the remaining ones that survived came out, there were small pogroms around
That's right.
Poland because it was an economic situation where, oh man, I thought I just got this farm for the last 4 years. I've been working this farm. I've got my seeds in this farm, and now the Jews are going to take it. I've been taking care of the
That's
cattle
That's right.
in this
Yeah.
Poland is mostly farmers,
Yeah.
and so there was a pogrom in that
Oh yes,
town.
and that town was Kanchuga.
In
You know
Kanchuga.
what we used to when I came down to my uncle when he stayed with a bunch of people, they killed 10 or 11 people in that place, and so my uncle, we stayed upstairs, he's up and down. He says, I will go downstairs, so when they come down, they'll kill me, and you will live.
So it was so even after the war, when the Nazis were
Yes.
defeated, it was still dangerous for Jews.
That's right, it was.
And your uncle Jack saved the rest of the
Oh
family
yes,
what he could.
he saved everybody.
Right.
He was, yeah.
So
So
after that, so now your Uncle Jack realizes it's not safe to even be in Poland at all.
that's right.
So
Yeah.
they decide to emigrate.
Well,
What happened to you? How did you eventually make your way to Massachusetts?
well, no,
I mean, it's a long story, but
Yeah.
what happened after that?
Now we could sit down here for about 5 or 6 hours, but you see, my brother was older than I have been, and he spoke fluently Hebrew. He was a linguist. He was a rabbi on top of it, but was not religious. And he organized all the survivors, especially kids. So now they had leaders from Israel to get the
Orphans.
Polish kids. I mean the Jewish Polish kids,
The orphans.
and so anyhow we had about. So I was still with Uncle Jack, and then. So he organized the guy from Israel, because the guy from Israel who came down to Poland couldn't speak Polish, very little. But my brother spoke Jewish, so they had about 120, 130 kids. And from Poland, we went to Italy. A whole group of kids went to Italy with a shaliach. It's another guy who came from Israel to Poland to get the kids to Italy, because from Italy they had a better chance to leave to the United States or Canada
Or Palestine.
or no Palestine, because it was under British
It was a
control.
blockade.
You see,
So you were, just so you guys know, it's called the Joint. It was the Joint
United Jewish of Appeals.
United Jewish Appeal and the
Yeah.
Joint Distribution Committee was all these Jewish organizations were rounding up the survivors.
That's right.
And you went by truck from Poland towards Italy?
You went by truck to the Polish Italian border, and you see the Poles did not want to let even the Jews get out. They wanted, I think, to kill them while they were in Poland. But for some reason, I think that the Polish government knew about it, and the Italian government knew about it, because the Italian government, they wouldn't take us, we couldn't go. They accepted us, and then we went to UNRWA camp, and it was about, I would say, 800,000 families and kids, and we lived in an entirely different place. All the kids
In an orphanage.
Well, it was orphanage or camp, or and they taught us Hebrew, Polish, and everything in that respect. And from down there,
So how long did you spend in Italy after the war?
I spent in Italy two and a half years or 3 years. I'm not quite
And there were
sure.
Jews from all over Europe there?
From all over the Jews, from every country you could think of: Russia, Ukraine, Polish, Czech, Romania, Hungary. You had, and all these kids. There were, let's say, 14, 15, 18. You see, this was there was a limit for the kids till the UNRWA, till the United Jewish Appeal, helped them out. So now they educated us to go down to Israel. Which because the British mandate didn't allow Jews to go into Israel.
To Palestine.
To Palestine, I should say, yes. So.
But they were trying to get Jews into Palestine at that time.
Well, they were trying, but they had a hard time.
Right.
They had to go illegally if they could.
That's another aspect of
Another episode.
an episode of the history of World War II is the force for the state of Israel of all these orphans and.
But you see, the British, England and Palestine was a British colony, and you see, if when the war broke out, they took hundreds of thousands of Jews from Israel, from Palestine, but they became Israel after, to fight with the Germans. So I had the uncle in Israel, and he was on a boat. And he said, as soon as we went on a boat close to Germany, the Germans attacked the boat, and they took all these soldiers, the Jewish soldiers, to a camp, and they were under the British mandate, so they couldn't kill them. They knew they were Jews. They could not kill them. So eventually, the Canadian government decided to let the young boys go to Israel, from Italy to Israel. And everybody who was naturally in the so-called orphanage or the camp, I would say 80-90% of the kids went to Israel.
And you went to Canada?
I went to see my brother, and I didn't want to go no place, just to Israel and fight, and that was it. And my brother was, he had some misunderstanding with the Israeli government. He says, look, we had an aunt and an uncle in Canada. He says, look, we have an aunt and an uncle. We'll go down, because I was about 3 or 4 years younger than my oldest brother. So he says, if you don't like it, Jack, we'll go down to Israel. So anyhow, I came down there, and I stayed, and my brother stayed with.
In Canada, you came to Winnipeg, yeah.
To Winnipeg, yeah. And my brother, he was.
You don't have to get into Joe.
No, okay.
And then, so you emigrated, but that's the nut of the story. That's that's.
Now you asked me before that how I came to the United States.
Right.
Well, my brother was a teacher, and a Hebrew teacher, and it was a university in Montreal. So he.
Yeshiva.
No, it was university, a school, Hebrew school, and he went down there to be accepted. So he he was about two months behind the time, and the dean of the university, he says, Mr. Goldman, you want to, and he says, put me in the last, it was a 4-year course. Put me in the last year. He says, but you'll miss a year. Try me. If I miss it, it'll be my fault. Anyhow, so he tells me after when he came back to Winnipeg from Montreal, He says, Jack, I studied very hard for about 3-4 weeks. And then I used to take off, didn't go to the lectures, go outside and have fun, you know. And
So he graduated here
he graduated as a teacher.
and came to April. Right?
Yeah, no. He
Rabbi
graduated.
Hayward.
He graduated as a teacher, and he picked up the Jewish Post, and he said he's looking for a teacher in Haverhill, Massachusetts. So he wrote to the temple, to the rabbi, and the rabbi, and I knew him very well. He was a very smart man, but he spoke very little in the Hebrew, you know. And then if he came to United States, he sponsored me, and I came to the United States. That's how I
So
learned.
he taught. He was a Hebrew school teacher.
Yeah, and he wanted to ordain him as a rabbi. But anyhow, okay, what's next? Any questions, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen? Go ahead, ask me anything what you want.
I was just wondering how you like coped with loss, like with your family and friends that you knew.
How did you come again?
How'd you cope with the loss?
Oh,
How'd you deal, like when you were in hiding? How'd you deal with your parents?
well, you get used to it. You want to survive. That's what it is. And you knew that they got killed most likely, you know, and that was basically the end, you see. But some of the Jewish people survived. Like my brother, you see, he was my mother's grandparents, and he was friendly with a boy his age, and he saved him, that boy. So summer was no problem to survive. Winter time was a problem.
Right.
You can't stay in the fields, and it's cold and nothing what to eat.
Yeah.
So he used to come up winter time, keep him in a barn. And I asked him, do you think that his parents knew about it? He said, nobody knows about you except you and I, you know?
Yeah. If you guys have seen the movie Defiance with Schreiber, that's kind of how his brother survived. In the spring, summer, and fall, he was living out in the fields, stealing
That's right.
food. And in the winter, he had a Christian friend from public school take him in the winter and hid him, and then he would go out. So for 3-4 years, that's how he survived.
Yeah, and his friend, my brother's friend, he says, look, Stasio, his name was, and he says, what could I, he said, my brother says, what could I do for you? He says, could send me to the Holy Land. And he did.
Bought him to go to Israel.
Yes, and he became a righteous Jew. A righteous Jew.
Right. He honored my uncle, his brother, honored the guy who saved him at Yad Vashem. There's it's called the Avenue of the Righteous.
Yeah.
And he was honored there. And I actually saw that when I was there. So.
Yeah. Okay, what's next, boys and girls, naturally? Any questions? You have to have at least one or two questions.
I've always thought when I hear the story, it's like there were the Holocaust, when you think about the Holocaust, most of the people just think about Auschwitz and the concentration camps. Yeah. But there's a whole other story of how neighbors treated Jews. And in this situation, my family, our family, were saved by, this story has righteous neighbors who did the right thing, but there was also the guy who turned you in, who you were with for 3 days, who went to the police and said, and turned you guys in. So it's such a complex, big subject. You can spend your whole life reading about the Holocaust and the complexity of it, the moral decisions, the difficult decisions. You know.
Okay.
I have a question. So even though you weren't like directly, like in what we think of, you still had like moments of despair and such. So how did you not lose hope?
How did I know if I?
How do you not lose hope?
No, I
When-
didn't. You see, now let's put it this way: you once a Jew, you remain a Jew, or you die a Jew. You see, and I knew that I was Jewish, but I couldn't tell anybody because all my young friends, I had friends which I used to go to church with them. We never discussed. They discussed how bad the Jews were. So I said, "Gee, this guy was so bad. I mean, he used to live in this house." He says, "Well, yes," and they give him out.
Right.
This is in the villages.
Do you remember ever getting homesick or sad for your parents?
I never thought about these things.
You just blocked it out of your
I
head
blocked it out, you see.
because you
And
were in
now if I-
survival mode?
Yes, and if I wouldn't meet my mother's cousin, I don't know if I would be here. I would be most likely a Jewish Pollock. You know? That's right. You see? Now,
You might have stayed there, lived on the farm, and lived their life as a half
I
Jewish.
think that this guy which I stayed with, he didn't have kids. He would leave me everything which he had. He had a beautiful home down there, on a farm, you know. And
You didn't think any Jews were left?
I
in the
never.
world?
That's right. I never thought that any Jews would survive. I thought I was the only Jew, you know. So naturally, we're going to ask for any way out, you know. I would have remained down there. This is what I think a lot of times.
Yeah, just so you guys know, having heard the story and thought about it a lot, we have a disagreement. He doesn't believe that the guy who took him in for 4 years, he thinks that man thought he was Christian. And I believe that the guy thought you knew
Right.
you were
No,
Jewish.
He did not know, because he would sacrifice his family and the neighbors.
Right.
So he would have most likely put me someplace put away, and help me. But I think that he did not know. When I went to Canada, so I wrote him a letter, and I wrote him my name, Goldman. So he sends me a letter back. He says, "Hey, Jack or Yannick, don't write Goldman, because nobody knows in the post office who you are." You know. So I used to send him a lot of things from Canada.
But my thinking is that even back then, 11-year-old kids don't just show up without parents. And the fact that this guy had no children, and you show up and he kind of adopts you in a way. He almost adopts you.
Well,
And that he just, maybe if he didn't know, he
want
didn't
to know.
ask, he didn't want to know.
Maybe he did not.
That's
know.
our ongoing discussion. It's not an argument, it's a discussion.
Yeah,
Maybe he
think
just
that-
didn't ask the right questions. He didn't want to ask the right questions.
Well, I don't know. I cannot answer this, but I think that he did not know.
Yeah, it was dangerous for him. I mean,
Oh, it was dangerous. So he didn't know, and that was it. If you don't know it, how could he be prosecuted?
right.
Yes. What's next?
You never told them that story when you were living there about meeting the Russian guy.
Oh, yeah.
This is a nice, if you
Yeah.
guys have time, is it
Do you guys have time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
Now,
you were living
I was living at
the farm.
At the farm. He had for the Polish or farmers' residence. He had a beautiful house, and
Go ahead.
the officers, when they invaded the section of
The Russian office.
the Russian, yeah. So when they invaded it, they had to have a place. They had to have a place for the officers. There was an officer. He had 3 stars, and he stayed down there, and with an assistant, with the guns and so on. You know, he used to have a guy, a short guy, come to this officer and tell him exactly what they needed and what he spent to feed the guys, ammunition-wise and so on. So I looked at this guy, you know, and it was an intuition. I had an intuition that this guy has to be a Jew, you know. So I was standing, he had a wooden fence. When he was walking out, it was night, it was about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I say to him, "Sprechen Sie Deutsch?" So he stopped and looks at me. He says, he comes to me, he says, "Sprichst du Deutsch?" So I say, "Nein, ich spreche Yiddish." Oh, he says, "I'm coming from Moscow, and you're the only Jew I met, you know?" And he asked me, he says, "Don't say nothing to nobody, because we don't know if we're going to get hit and go back. So then everybody will know that you're Jewish and you'll get killed."
And he was Jewish.
And this guy, the Russian guy was Jewish. He says, "I'm coming from Moscow. You're the only Jew which I met," you know. It was, he says, "Do you need anything?" I say, "No, thank you." You know, he was in charge of.
It's an early example of Judar, of Jewish radar, that you could spot a Jew from across the farm.
Yes, oh yes. Well, I could have spotted a person when he just started talking English, and I could tell which country he came from. But now I'm losing it. You know, now I can't. But that was intuition.
Wow.
Okay, so what else? Go ahead, ask me
I have
some
a
questions.
Having lived through so much and like being through such a tragedy, what are some things that helped you like carry on and make yourself like happy for the rest of your life?
Well,
My 2 sons.
this is you mean after what happened after?
Yeah, how'd you carry on? What filled your life? Work was a lot of it.
Basically, I was working every day. I don't even now I still work. I keep my mind occupied, you know, and I never thought about this, you see. But you know, it was something to think about it.
Yeah. Do you think when you were younger you blocked it out and now you think about it more?
Yes.
Well,
Do you think that now as you get older?
well, you see,
You think it was
when Neil and Danny, my son, the oldest son, we used to go to Florida winter time. So him and my oldest son, I had a station wagon. So they always ask me, "Daddy, how did you survive the war?" So I didn't want to tell them because they would get nightmares, you know, because they wouldn't be able to imagine. Now I have grandkids. One is 16 and one is 21. And they, when I would say something, Danny said, "Don't tell them, they'll be dreaming about these things."
Yeah.
But I used to tell them certain things which they could comprehend and look at the wind. And yeah,
So yeah, I think it's a good question, but I think a lot of the survivors didn't talk about it.
that's right.
It was
They did
just
not.
difficult. Your cousins didn't talk about it. You can even tell them about Bella, the girl from the attic. He had a cousin. His first cousin was a baby in the attic.
That's right.
And what happened when she came out?
Well, she could hardly speak because she couldn't talk loud. So she used to be horsey. But after a while, it got away.
Right.
And the poor girl, she was around 70. He passed away. She had 2 kids.
Right.
You know.
But after the war, from being in hiding, she
right.
didn't even have a voice. She had to get therapy to get her voice back because for 4 years, from age 2 to 6,
Yeah,
She didn't really talk.
she couldn't.
She couldn't talk.
When you smile, you, well, anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how did you like it? I mean, maybe
No, thumbs up. We got thumbs up here.
okay.
Yeah, that was awesome. Does
It
anyone
was
else
great, yeah.
Yeah.
any more questions? Landstein.
It's what?
There's a question here.
When you were in hiding, did you ever like pray in secret or do anything religious, like in the attic?
Did you do any prayers when you were in hiding
No, I did
with your
not.
uncle?
No, I did not. I think even maybe my uncle did, but I did not. You
Yeah.
see?
No, they weren't.
You know,
Our
I-
family wasn't religious, but they
Yeah.
were. Was your family?
No, they were
They kept
observant.
kosher?
Well, yes and no. Let's say they did, but let's put it this way, because most of the religious Jews kept kosher, you
Right.
know. But the other sect did not.
Yeah. And did you? And when you were going to church, did you think that was crazy? That here you are going to church? Did you get the communion?
Yes.
What did they do? How they do it?
No, at that time they put that on your tongue, but now they don't. You take the platter, you see. So you take it, you know. it
Every day
seems
you
to
take
me-
the body of Christ.
No, just when you go to the confession, that's what you did. But you know, you think, "Gee, what is this little piece of paper does to you?" I mean, it's fanaticism. It's the same thing like with the religious Jews. They are fanatics,
Right.
you know. You see, like for example, you guys, you don't want to walk around with face like this with a yarmulke. Well, with a yarmulke's not too bad, but pays up to here and tzitzis. You know what's a tzitzis, eh? The things with your kiss, you know. This, hey, well, if you look back, if you look in Israel, it's a big problem with the religious Jews.
No, that's politics.
Yeah, it's part. No, it's anyhow. Okay, if you guys have no questions,
Any more questions?
I have
No.
one more. I have a question.
Sure.
So, the farmer that you stayed with for a few years, if he had discovered that you were a Jew, do you think he would have turned you in?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
well,
If Franciszek found out you
no,
were Jewish,
I don't know if you would. You know, it's very hard to answer because he thought I was Polish. But then you see, it's a good question what you asked me, because when I wrote him from Canada and they put my name, Goldman, so most likely he had to, something was not kosher, most likely.
what name did you give him that you were?
Oh, it's another name. It's,
You gave him a fake name.
oh, naturally, you couldn't give him name the Goldman when he was hiding.
It's too Jewish.
You see, so you know, because you have Goldman, Weinstein, Goldberg, you know, they all Jewish. Goldstein, you know, and I don't think so. If he would have, this is like I never thought about it because I didn't have to think about it. I lived like a Pole. Went to church, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, it's
And-
it's a
and-
very good question.
And it was a real, there were so many lucky situations that the guy took you in that he didn't have any other children
Well,
because they would have seen that you were circumcised.
well, I wouldn't take a bath with him.
But you would have to. You would take baths together normally, right?
Well, anyhow,
Yeah.
I survived and I'm still here. And
It's a good, I wonder
you know,
if how that guy would have behaved.
well, I don't know if he's living now, but I doubt it very much because he was when I came down there, he was about 40, 42 or 45. You know, so anyhow, but
Any other questions?
I have one. What I think you touched upon this, but what compelled you to leave your family's house and go to, like, leave the
Yes.
safety from your family?
well, it
In the
was-
attic, you mean,
Yeah, I
right?
know, yes. It was too
Yes.
congested, you know. And you know, after a while, you said, "Gee, I'll leave. Whatever happens, happens." That's what I thought. You know, it was 6 people, you see, down at with my uncle. But you have to give my uncle, land him rest in peace. Anything you could imagine, he did. He sacrificed his life for us, and they all survived.
But the question is, why did you leave? It's a kind of a 11-year-old kid. It's
I
kind of a
didn't
crazy
want to
idea.
stay. It was hard. It was hard, and I never thought about this. What's going to happen to me when I cannot, when nobody will take me in? You see, there was another one. So I would have landed up 6 feet under, and I wouldn't be here telling you about these things, you know. But anyhow, we all here.
Any other questions? Ask.
Yeah. Any more questions?
All right. Awesome. If no one has any more questions, then I just want to wrap up by saying, Jack, thank you a lot for joining us.
You're welcome.
To hear your story. And I hope that you guys are able to like take what you've learned and take this story and apply it to make the Holocaust more than just like a historical event, but like recognize what it truly was, which was just like an atrocity against humans. Like they were actual humans, not just like numbers. So thank you.
Yeah, it's very difficult, believe me.
Yeah. And if somebody says it never happened, you can say, I talked to a guy who was there.
That's right.
Who was there?
But they don't want to know. You see, somebody asked you what Holocaust would never happened. That's wrong. They cannot imagine. They know it. You see, you have a lot of people who don't believe that what happened. You see,
Yeah.
Especially the Germans. They were educated people, and a lot of Jews were assimilated to be German. And I met after survivors, and he says, when this guy was the 2nd or 3rd generation, he was a teacher, and he says, because it doesn't make no difference if you were 2, 3, or 4 generations, but if you have Jewish blood, you were eliminated. So his parents had a farm. He became a teacher, and he says, so I say, how did you survive? I survived on account of my parents. They did not know that that the parents, the great-grandparents or great-parents were Jewish. So he tells me, I am the 3rd or 4th generation German. But he told me, and I remember this thing, once a Jew, you remain a Jew. And he says, I was born basically a German, but I still am a Jew. You see, Hitler wanted to eliminate him. Because if I'm not mistaken, it was 7 or 8 generations. If they found out that you had blood, 5, 6, 7 generations, they took you in. Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay. I hope you learned something, and maybe I learned something from you, you know.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice school.
Okay.
Yeah, look, take a look. See, there's a whole bunch now that everyone's
Yeah.
turning
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
How do you
Bye,
leave?
Jake. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, you did a good job. You did an excellent job, Jake.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Say hello to your parents.
Say hi, everybody.
Yes.
Bye.